Hi, my name is Dr. Bushman. Today we're going to go over the creative problem-solving process. It's the oldest process that's used in creativity and innovation, and many of the other processes are actually built on top of it. Uh, the creative problem-solving process has been around for roughly 80 years, and we continue to advance it through current research in science and statistical analysis on its effectiveness. There are many tools that are used in the creative problem solving process, which is 4 steps. And in later videos, we're actually going to learn some of those tools and, of course, also put them to practice. So, our welcome slide, and I'm going to share my presentation. Notice is from the Creative Education Foundation. And this is the actual presentation used in the Creative Problem Solving Level 1 certification. There are 4 levels of certification in the creative problem solving process. And later on in this course, you're actually going to take the creative problem solving process level 1 exam. So you have an opportunity to become certified in it. So to take a look at how what we're going to talk about today, first off, we're going to talk about how to overcome blocks to creativity. We're going to identify some behaviors conductive to creative thinking and apply some core principles of creative thinking and utilize or at least learn about divergent and convergent thinking. And of course, we're going to talk about and look at some of the CPS steps involved. There are 4 steps which we're going to visit. There will be a part 2 of this video that dives deeper into the tools. This is just the introductory part 1. So there are some assumptions and principles that we need to consider when we talk about creative problem solving. First off, there are cognitive processes. What is a cognitive process? It's just a way of thinking. And we need to have a dynamic balance between what are called divergent and convergent thinking. Divergent thinking is literally when you kind of take something apart into its individual pieces. I like to think about it because I'm a foodie, so I kind of like to think about food. And if you've ever watched the show Master Chef, you know, Gordon Ramsay, Chef Ramsay, always tries to get the chefs to elevate their dishes. And how do they do that? Well, they actually take a dish and they break it down into its individual components, and then they can taste and test and maximize the flavor of each individual part. That's divergent, taking something apart. I like to think of it as that like a hamburger. So if I were going to create, or you were going to create the greatest hamburger in the world, you would take the bun and set it to a side. You would take the patty and set it aside. That's one element. The cheese, the lettuce, or the different elements that you would want to put on your burger, and you would put them out, let's say, on a table. Now, you could have a bun that's a sesame seed bun, a focaccia roll, a Hawaiian sweet bed roll, you know, an onion roll. You could do all kinds of different types of rolls for a bun. You could take the patty, and right now, today, for instance, we've got all kinds of creative hamburgers where they're part beef, part bison, maybe an elk burger, or of course, we have our vegetarian and vegan burgers that are made out of non-meat or dairy products. So then we would take and say, okay, well, what kind of cheese goes good with a hamburger patty and an onion bun, and maybe we want to put pepper jack cheese on it. Maybe we then want to say, well, what kind of vegetables would we put on it? Well, you know, pepper jack cheese, we might put a green onion or a red onion or a jalapeno on it, et cetera, et cetera. And as we go down and choose the different items, what we're doing is we've diverged, we've torn it apart, and we've taken a look at the different elements that create the burger, try to make them as best as we could. We did some creative thinking about our options. And then what we do is we then bring it back together and converge. So we would literally take our burger and put it on the bun. And we're going to put the cheese. Maybe we want the cheese on the bottom instead on the top. Maybe we want a sauce, and we don't want to make the burger or the bun mushy. So we put the sauce in between the cheese and the burger, so that the bun doesn't get soggy. And once it's all put back together, then we can actually taste it, see what it's like. And if we like it, that's great. And if it's not as good as we want, we repeat the process. We take it back apart. We think to ourselves, man, the pepper jack cheese just didn't quite go with that. Maybe what I'm going to put on my bison burger is a really good Munster cheese. And I'm going to throw some applewood smoked bacon instead of hickory smoked bacon, or maybe top it with a fried egg, like we do it like in Pittsburgh, right? And have a Pittsburgh burger. So anyway, that's kind of how the process works. So we diverge by taking something apart, and then we put it back together, we converge, we test it, and then we can make iterations or repeat the process more than once. One of the things that helps us do this when we talk about problem solving is we need to pose problems as questions. So our minds activate the creativity part of our thinking when we need to answer a question. So it's really, really important that we phrase problems as questions for our mindset's sake, because it allows our mind to start thinking about different perspectives to the challenge that we're facing. And it transforms a problem statement saying, well, here, we don't have the budget for this, or this was the way it was always done, or whatever problem you might be finding. But when you restate it as a question, it actually creates an open-ended thought process, and it leads to solutions. So, for instance, in this example, we're not making enough profit. That's a close-ended. Okay, wow, okay, great, good to know that. But if we want to actually try to solve the problem and find out how we might make more profit, we need to transform that. And so we have some thought leaders or sentence question leaders that help us do that. One of them is HMW. How might we save more money? How might we increase our profit? What might all the ways be that we could lower our costs? And what ways might we grow our profits? When we ask questions and turn our problem into a question, we actually open up our brains, the creative part of our brains, to be able to come up with possible solutions and think outside the box. So while we're thinking outside the box and we're coming up with different ideas to answer those questions, there are some things that are really, really super important in regards to guidelines. And that is, the first off, we have external and internal components or feedback. And we've got to defer or suspend judgment on our ideas for a short time, because when we judge our own ideas or someone else's ideas, we might not actually share those ideas because we might not think they're valid. Or if we judge someone else's idea, we're going to shut them down, and they won't give us continue to participate. So it's super important that we be open-minded and not judge an idea of someone else's. So some of the external thoughts that might come around are, hey, positive thoughts. That's a great idea. I love that idea. Those kind of statements, when you're telling someone else, encourage them to continue to ideate, to create ideas and solutions to the problem. Internally, we can say to ourselves, man, I'll sound smart if I say that. Or, you know what? I've got a great idea. I think it's the best idea. When we talk positive to others and to ourselves, it actually unlocks and keeps the creative juices in our brains flowing. On the flip side, if we make negative statements like, yeah, we've tried that before, or, it's not in the budget, or if we think negative thoughts on the inside, like, man, I'll sound crazy if I say that, or, my idea will never work. We literally shut off the creative process in our minds. And so we need to make sure that we give ideas a chance to grow. And the only way that we're going to do that is to actually be able to share them with the team that we're working with. So we want to focus on yes and. A lot of people walk through life as an either or. It's either this or it's either that. And the reality is wisdom and the best innovation and creativity come from people that understand that life is a both and. So we can say, yes, that's true. And what else? So we don't want to ever stop. We want to say yes, yes, yes. And what's next? What now? How do we do that? Who's involved? Where can we do that? When can we do that? Why is that important? We want to do a yes and. We want to be a both and type of a thinker. So have a creative attitude. The life is pretty simple. What we planned, and I know analytical people, this might drive them crazy, especially those in research and love statistical analysis, because what we plan might be a straight arrow, but what really happens in life is a squiggly line. And it's actually the squiggly lines that take the straight arrows over the top from good to great. So just a quick summary core of the concepts that we talked about. Remember, divergent and convergent thinking are absolutely critical when it comes to creative problem solving, creativity, and innovation. We want to make sure that we pose problems as questions. Absolutely critical that we do this, because if we just state the problem, that's all we'll ever see. And just like in design thinking, we fall in love with the problem, not by stating what the problem is. We fall in love with it by asking questions about it and stating it. How might we? Wouldn't it be great if? And so use those question starters to help spur your creativity. And again, when we're talking about and looking at questions, defer judgment, don't judge. Make sure that you stay in a positive state of mind and use positive language, because negative language and criticism shuts down creative thought. And finally, remember to be a both and type of a person. Focus on the yes and what else. And so those are the summary of the core concepts. And so just real quick on some divergent guidelines to rehash, remember, defer the judgment, build on ideas, seek wild ideas, that's okay. And go for quantity, not necessarily quality. We'll go through quality as we vet the different ideas as we move forward in the process. Another convergent guideline is when you converge, be very deliberate. This is where we're actually making those judgments. This is where we took a look at the hamburger and we chose the components we wanted to put back together. Check the objectives. Is my objective to create the world's greatest hamburger? What is the goal that I'm looking for? Because then we can make sure we're in line with our project, improve on our ideas. We can be affirmative, and consider what's called novelty. And novelty is making something new or improving on something that's already existing. You might make a hamburger that no one has ever seen before, kind of like the vegan burgers that are out today. And if you haven't tried one, I'll tell you, today's vegan burgers, they're actually really tasty and they go great on the grill. So those are kind of the guidelines and the intro that we wanted to lay today. We'll get into the 4 different steps of the creative problem solving process as we move through. And those processes, again, the 4 steps are clarify the problem, right? Ideate, create generating some interesting ideas, develop a plan, and then implement it. And if you think about it, that is just exactly what we did when we talked about divergent and convergent thinking and the divergent and convergent guidelines. We looked at making the world's greatest hamburger, right? That is our problem. How might we improve the hamburger. We came up with some creative ideas by diverging and pulling the hamburger apart. We also developed a plan, right, which chose the different types, and we converged those together. That was our plan. Our convergence was how we put the burger back together, and then implementation was taking a nice big juicy bite. So I hope that you enjoyed this quick little lesson on the 4 steps of the creative problem solving process, and some guidelines to make sure that our minds and cognitive processes are open to innovation and creativity. Thanks, and I'm going to stop my share and make sure to review this for the exam, and have a great and wonderful day.